Welcome, everyone. This is Empower Your Voice with me, Tommy Ludgate, and it is a series of conversations exploring how we express ourselves, listen into our inner voices, how we maybe make sound with our voice, or how we maybe use our voice within our businesses. It could be a variety of things. And today we've got Rebecca with us, and we're going to be talking about our identity alchemy. So Rebecca, could you tell us about the work you do and how you use your voice in your business?
So thank you so much for inviting me. I offer up, but I think back in 20 a lot of the work I do now, so it's quite a natural evolution. So I am a brand sense maker and thought partner. I'm positioning strategist, multi have like on paper they've created success, client revenue, but are finding themselves bored or over or outgrown, they are sensing that next level of or next growth, ability, income is come by being known. Still that multifaceted whirling around their mind. It's a very layered, very stackable positioning. That position them or that only without having.
Just 1 second, I'm just going to turn this fan off. I don't know if everyone else is hearing okay, but Rebecca, I missed some of what you just said, but I'm going to just have faith that it worked. And I'm going to ask you the next question and see how the sound is now. But if you could comment if you're watching, if you're not finding you can hear it that easily. So how important do you think it is for us to connect with our vocal identity when we're running our own business?
I think it's everything. It's absolutely fundamental. You know, we're not in this for the short run, right? We're here trying to build sustainable brands. And I don't mean sustainability in terms of like the climate sense. I mean brands businesses that are sustainable for the long run, that are going to fulfill us, hold meaning for us. And I think the way that we do that is to ensure that we are using messaging and leading with words that feel expansive to us as well. And I think so often messaging focuses on like your outcomes and what your clients need to hear and, you know, what your deliverables are. And actually, we're going to outgrow that so quickly unless we're really anchoring what we're saying into our own beliefs, our own philosophies, and our own opinions. And I could share my story of this. You know, I'm not overly outspoken politically on my business platforms, and I'm fine with that. But for a long time, I struggled to find the meaning. Essentially, when you step it back, what I do is marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Under marketing, and the purpose of marketing is to make people buy shit, which is so at odds with my wider beliefs. And I mean, well, not even a belief, it's a fact, right, that the earth cannot sustain the current economic model. I've heard this phrase, be the window.
Mm-hmm.
Me, everything really began to like click into place. And I think, and what that means, or kind of what that meant to me, was actually we don't have to be running the businesses right now or using our voices to make the change right now, because realistically, our generation can't do that, right? We can't rewire the economic infrastructure that supports the way we live. We can't reconnect everyone back to our nature, our roots. We can't shift consumption behavior. But what we can do is use the way we see the world and the way that we have to be as the window to then become a framework for other people to follow. And this is the work that I help my clients do. It's to really distill those thoughts, those visions, those beliefs that they have into narratives that they can use with their business so that they become that window for future generations. And so many of them are already doing it. You know, my clients are healers, therapists, they're conservation photographers or activists. And so, they are already healing generational trauma. They are standing up for DEI on a stage where it's being attacked globally. They are raising awareness of what's happening out in the world in terms of nature and things like that. So, yeah, I think when you can find the thing that you really believe and find a way to then distill and connect that back to the actions that you take through your business, not only do you create impact on a far greater scale, on a larger scale, you start weaving an element of legacy into the work you're doing, but you're also going to be able to be in it for the long run.
Mm. Yeah, I am listening to you and thinking, I've been in such a sort of place of transition this year of not even moving from something to another place in my work, but just noticing. I think what you're talking about is that, what do I believe in, and what are the things that make me me, and what's all my experience, which is very varied and very different to other people. And I think I was just going to add to what you're saying, as if someone's watching this and thinking, oh, well, that sounds where I want to be, but it feels quite far away. It's just this idea of how do we play and explore in the early stages of figuring it out. And I know for me, it's been about having real-time conversations with people face to face. So I think, you can sit and see other people doing things and find that really inspiring, but sometimes that can feel quite blocking and make you feel quite stuck. So I found just speaking to people and being curious and noticing what people have said they're finding difficult. So for me, it's like, how am I helping figure out that problem or challenge? So would you say the same, like before someone comes to actually working with you and doing this work in depth, would you say it's about having conversations? What else might you suggest?
I fully with what you were saying. I think that, so often we can do the inner work on ourselves, but that's quite not lonely, but it's a very insular process. And we can look at and watch and, like you say, be inspired by what other people are doing. But sometimes what you need is a second person just to bounce ideas back and forth. Notice, yes, what they are saying and what they're struggling with, but also I think the piece that is often missed is that you need someone who can reflect you back to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Actually give words to the things that you are perhaps skirting around and perhaps alluding to, and perhaps, or even like more obviously, like recurring themes that kind of come up that you don't quite piece together. And so I think having that other person to just sort of notice those things and reflect them back to you is a huge part of that process. Because it's validating, right? You might have had these ideas and think, oh, do you know what? I really believe in that. And this is such part of what it might be, something that really inspires you on a personal level, or is a guiding sort of value in your personal life, but you can't quite see how it connects to your business. And then might just be able to go, oh, but that's it. Or sometimes it's someone who doesn't necessarily know you at all. Like one of my biggest personal values, and it is a value in my business as well, is about living life in pursuit of awe and really being intentional about noticing the things that are astounding and amazing. And it doesn't need to be like the big, huge stuff. It can be like the everyday. And I'd never connected that to my work. Really, it really was about me. And I was teaching at a university, and we had just finished a 4-week program, and all the students were sort of rounding up what their reflections were. And lots of people said like the obvious stuff, like, oh, I feel more connected to my story, or, I feel like my brand represents me. But then one girl stood up and was like, I feel in awe of myself. Oh, okay. So you're now moving beyond the realm of sort of messaging and positioning, and we're entering into identity, which is a realm I'm very comfortable working in. But you're bringing awe into that. And then suddenly, like over the next few months, I just started, things clicked into place. And I was like, actually, no, that idea of being more of your future self is actually now a huge piece of my work. And just, it's training your brain, right? It's kind of being intentional about think you might want to go, but at the same time being really open-minded. And I think if you're keeping these things sort of front of mind, I think the universe has a way of just sort of like being, hi,
Yeah.
you're looking for, or this is what you need. And yeah, often that comes from someone else saying an off the cuff mark or reflecting.
Yeah. Yeah, I've definitely had a similar experience again this year in particular, where I wasn't steering myself towards the change that I'm now having, but it's been other things and clients I've been working with that have made me go, oh, right, yeah, that should be part of it, or part of what I'm doing. And yeah, or you think you're creating something for a certain audience or person or type of client, and then I've just had an experience where I've spent ages designing something just for a friend who's in another industry to go, oh, this would work really well there. And I was like, oh, didn't even think of it. So obvious. Yes, of course. So yes, that external sort of input is so helpful, isn't it? So when I want to then come back to being the person in the business, this identity we have, and when we get really clear on it, and how we then share it with other people. And we were going to talk a bit about thought leadership. I have to say, any title or buzzwords that I end up seeing loads, I'm like, I don't even know what it means. What does it even mean? So I suppose it's like, how do we bring, once we've got that identity clear, how do we bring that into how we're sharing our work and how we're talking about it?
I'm with you on the thought leadership thing. Like, that is a huge part of what I do, and it's an massive outcome for my clients. They establish themselves as thought leaders. But to me, what that means is leading with your thoughts.
Yes,
And
that's so much better.
because, and I think that for a couple of reasons. I think, like where we're at in the world, and there's so much going on, like we are craving resonance, right? And you don't get that resonance from mass visibility often. It can happen. What happens far more often is once you're getting to that sort of huge, like mass scale visibility, you're kind of entering a bit of a guru sort of status, and then it becomes quite mass and quite mainstream, the messaging, and you lose that nuance and you lose that individual resonance. So that's kind of the space that I play in. It doesn't mean that you can't then take that to a global stage, and it doesn't mean that you can't get like or the national trust, that stuff happens to my clients, but they're very resonant in their message. And the way that I approach it is not to is it, like I said, it's like an ecosystem. So you sort of start with one core positioning concept, one sort of thing that you are known for. And actually, you don't start there, you end there. But from the purpose of sort of visibility, you have this kind of core concept. And then around that, you just have these sort of layers. So you'll have kind of this sort of core concept that you're known for. You'll have like one stake in the ground opinion that is sort of here's what the industry is doing wrong, or the world, or whatever. And this is my better way, and here's why it works. And then around that, you have I call them thought leading narratives that kind of weevil out. And these are opinions you have about, or philosophies, or whatever, or perspectives on sort of the individuals and how we as individuals should operate. They're perspectives that look at perhaps your industry and how your industry is operating. And then they ladder out again. And then it's like, okay, well, what are the cultural things that I really have strong opinions on? What needs to shape here? What needs to change here? And what happens as you build out this web is that rather than having sort of those specific content pillars, or, oh God, I need to talk about this today or that, you have almost like a tapestry of different ideas with really clear lines that kind of connect them. So you can be talking about a report over here, perhaps it's that come out in your industry, but you can feel really confident that you're going to put your unique take on it, because it's going to ladder back through this system, through perhaps a cultural thing, or through an industry thing, back down to your sort of stake in the ground in the middle. And it just creates such freedom and spaciousness to go where your mind or your business or whatever is taking you, knowing that you've got this kind of ecosystem that's holding you. You kind of focus with your leadership and the impact that you're here to create.
And do you think it's okay to like just experiment with that? Because it feels like what you're describing sounds lovely, this tapestry, the threads that tie it all together, and I'd love to be there, but I feel like I'd only get there by trying things out. And again, it's actually just conversation. And I the other part of it I was going to say was, I kind of feel like I have this perception that if I'm going to write something like that, there needs to be some controversial spin to it, or like I'm going against the grain somehow. Is that part of what we're trying to do?
I think often and quite unexpectedly that the process that we go through. And yeah, quite often some of the leading statements that come out might be quite controversial. Sometimes people are surprised at how strong their opinions are on things. It doesn't need to be. It just needs to be your take, your perspective, because and quite often people worry that, oh, what I think has been said before, or that person's got a much bigger audience, so who's going to listen to me? Or do you know what, everyone's talking about it, what's the point? But no one's got your perspective. No one's going to look at it in the way you do. No one's going to connect the different facets of your personality, your experience, your work, and present an opinion through that lens. What we're capturing. And you're right, that comes through exploration, and it can be exploration with friends, and it can be exploration with partners. When I do it, it's more intentional because they're here for a reason. And quite often what comes out is what goes in, if that makes sense.
No, say more.
When we kind of go through this process, essentially, like imagine we're in a blank room and you've got a pile of post-it notes. By the end of the sort of session, there are 50 post-it notes on the wall of just ideas, thoughts, things that just kind of come to mind. And we go through this process of distillation and refining. And so quite often what kind of happens at the end, once we've kind of gone through that, is that a lot of this... Oh no, we've lost Tommy. Okay, I'm going to wait for a moment to see if Tommy is coming back. Well, perhaps I will keep answering her question while she is gone. So what I meant then when I said that quite often what goes in isn't what comes out is that, yeah, we'll be in this room, we'll kind of create all these post-its, and actually the narratives and the thoughts that come out of that often don't resemble the specific points that were put into it. But through this process of distillation and pattern recognition and weaving things together, we get to the real core, I guess, of what those beliefs, opinions, and thought leading perspectives are. And that's what we then work with. Just going to see if Tommy has sent me a message to see what's going on. Does not look like it. Okay, I'm going to end this because it's Tommy's chat, and then we will come back in together.